They say rock bottom teaches you lessons that comfort never could. But what if rock bottom comes with a mortgage, 2 kids, and a front door that won't even close properly? Sometimes the path to healing isn't paved in peace, but in peeling paint, busted floorboards, and the kind of silence that dares you to start over. What happens when rock bottom comes with a mortgage for Erin Dawson and her 2 children? Their fresh start looked like this: peeling paint, a sagging porch, and more problems than one mother with a broken heart and an empty bank account could possibly handle. Before we continue, let us know where you're watching from. 6 months after signing her divorce papers, Erin Dawson stood in the pouring rain, staring at what was supposed to be her salvation: a 1920s colonial-style house in the small coastal town in Maine where she'd grown up, the place she hadn't seen in 18 years. The real estate listing had used words like charming and full of character. What it should have said was a trap for the desperate, because only someone with nowhere else to go would find this broken-down relic appealing. Maya, 15, artistic and withdrawn since the divorce, refused to even look at their new home. And 11-year-old Caleb's excitement about a new adventure had just turned into visible disappointment. "Well, here we are," Erin said with forced cheerfulness, her voice echoing in the empty foyer. "Home sweet home." The smell hit them first, musty, damp, with a hint of something that had died long ago inside the walls. It was the kind of scent that clung to your clothes and whispered, "Get out while you still can." The real estate photos had been strategically cropped and filtered, hiding the water stains that bloomed across the ceiling like yellow flowers. Maya stepped inside cautiously, her headphones still firmly in place. "I can't believe you made us move here," she muttered, heading straight for the stairs. "Be careful on those stairs," Erin called after her. "The inspector said they might." A loud creak and a sudden crash interrupted her as Maya's foot went straight through a step. "Mom!" Maya screamed, her leg disappearing up to her knee in splintered wood. Caleb's eyes widened in fear. "Is the house eating her?" Erin rushed forward, grabbing her daughter and pulling her free, splinters catching on Maya's jeans. "Are you okay? Are you hurt?" Maya yanked her earbuds out. "This place is a death trap. I hate it here. I hate it." 6 months ago, Erin had sat across from her lawyer, pen hovering over the divorce papers. "Once you sign, the house goes to him," her lawyer had reminded her. "Are you sure you don't want to fight for it?" Erin shook her head. "The kids need stability, not parents draining their college funds on legal fees. I'll figure something out." That something had come in the form of a phone call from a real estate agent back in her hometown. A property had just come on the market, the old Hollis place. The house had once belonged to her grandmother's best friend. It was where she'd spent countless afternoons as a child. The price was shockingly low, a little too perfect for someone running on fumes, like the house had been waiting for a lost soul to walk through its door. Too low, as she was now discovering. That night, the three of them huddled in sleeping bags in the barren living room. Rain continued to pour, finding its way through at least 3 separate leaks. Erin had placed pots and pans to catch the water, creating an irregular symphony of drips. "Remember when we went camping that time in Acadia?" Erin tried handing out slices of cold pizza. "This is like that, an indoor camping adventure." Caleb nibbled his pizza. "Except there are no s'mores, and Dad's not here." The words hung in the air like the dust motes visible in the beam of their single working lamp. "Mom," Maya said quietly, "what happens if we can't fix this place? We don't have anywhere else to go, do we?" Erin swallowed hard, pushing back the panic that threatened to overflow. "We'll make it work. This house just needs some love," she said, forcing a smile. "Besides, your great-great-grandmother used to visit here all the time. This house has good bones and good memories. We just need to find them again." After the kids had finally fallen asleep, Erin stepped onto the sagging porch with her phone, trying to find enough signal to make a call. "Megan, it's me. I think I've made a terrible mistake." Her best friend's voice was a lifeline across the miles. "Talk to me, E. How bad is it?" "Remember when I said it needed a little work? I was off by about a century." Erin's voice cracked. "The inspector clearly took a bribe. There are structural issues, electrical problems, plumbing disasters. I don't even know where to start. Can you back out?" Get your money back? I used everything I had from the divorce settlement. If I walk away now, we have nothing. Erin wiped away a tear. I can't let the kids see me fall apart. Maya's barely speaking to me since the divorce, and Caleb's trying so hard to be brave. A silence fell between them. You know what my grandmother used to say? Megan finally offered. When you can't see the way forward, start by cleaning what's right in front of you. The next morning, Erin woke before the kids. She found an old broom in a closet and began sweeping the kitchen. By the time Maya and Caleb stumbled downstairs, she had cleared enough space for their camping stove. Pancakes, she announced, flipping one with determined cheerfulness. And I have good news. The water's been turned on. And while the water heater is questionable, we have a functioning bathroom, sort of. Caleb approached the pancakes cautiously. Are we really going to live here, Mom? Caleb asked, eyes still fixed on the sagging ceiling. Erin nodded. We are, and we're going to make it amazing. After breakfast, we're going to make a plan. Maya poked at her pancake with visible disdain. I have a plan. Call Dad and tell him this was a mistake. Erin stiffened. Your father has moved on, Maya. He and Carla are starting their new life, and we're starting ours. We didn't ask for a new life, Maya shouted. You and Dad ruined everything, and now you've dragged us to this dump. Erin felt her control slipping. Maya, I'm doing the best I can. Do you think this is what I planned? Do you think I wanted any of this? For a heartbeat, the air seemed to hold still, thick with years of unspoken pain and anger. The silence that followed was broken only by Caleb's small voice. Is that a treehouse out back? Erin turned to follow his gaze through the grimy window. Sure enough, nestled in a massive oak tree was the weathered remains of what had once been a child's hideaway. I think it is, Erin said, grateful for the distraction. Want to check it out after breakfast? Caleb nodded eagerly. As they stood beneath the ancient oak later that morning, Erin felt the first genuine smile cross her face in what felt like forever. The treehouse was surprisingly sturdy, far more stable than parts of the main house. Someone had clearly built it with love and care. Can we fix it up, Mom? Caleb asked, already reaching for the ladder. Careful, Erin cautioned. Let me check it first. As she climbed the rickety ladder, testing each rung, Erin felt something she hadn't experienced in months, a fragile spark of hope pushing through the rubble of everything she'd lost. The treehouse was small but solid. It needed new boards, fresh paint, maybe even a real window to replace the cutout square. But it could be saved. Standing inside the tiny wooden structure, Erin looked out over the backyard, overgrown and wild, but spacious. Beyond it, she could see the rooftops of the small town where she'd grown up. A town where everyone knew everyone's business, for better or worse. It's going to be okay up there, Caleb called from below. Erin looked down at her son's upturned face, so full of hope and trust despite everything they'd been through. Yes, she said with newfound determination, it's going to be okay. That afternoon, Erin made a phone call. Hello? Is this Daniel Ortiz? I got your number from the hardware store. I've been told you're the best contractor in town. I have a project, she continued. Well, more like 100 projects. It's the old Hollis place. There was a low whistle on the other end of the line. The Hollis place? That's been empty for years. What kind of shape is it in? Erin laughed, the sound carrying a slightly hysterical edge. Let's just say we're currently using umbrellas indoors. I can come by tomorrow morning to take a look, Daniel offered. But I should warn you, I'm booked solid for the next few months. I might be able to give you some advice, maybe help with the most urgent issues, but a full renovation. Anything would help at this point, Erin admitted. We'll see you tomorrow. That night, after the kids had finally fallen asleep, Erin pulled out her laptop and connected to the weak signal from her phone's hotspot. She opened a new document and titled it Operation Resurrection. Beneath it, she began her list. Fix roof, urgent. Repair structural damage to stairs and floors. Update electrical, plumbing issues. Kitchen renovation, bathroom upgrades. Walls and paint, landscaping. She stared at the list, the enormity of it making her chest tighten. Then she opened her banking app and looked at the balance, the last of her divorce settlement after the down payment. It wasn't nearly enough. Erin opened a new browser tab and typed, How to renovate a house on a shoestring budget. The next morning, Daniel Ortiz arrived. He was younger than Erin had expected, with capable hands and thoughtful eyes that didn't betray any shock as he walked through the house, though she knew it had to be one of the worst he'd seen. "The good news," he said after his inspection, "is that the foundation is solid. This house was built right the first time. The bad news," he paused as they stood in what would eventually become the kitchen, "is pretty much everything else." Caleb followed Daniel around like a shadow, hanging on his every word. Maya had stayed upstairs, still exploring the bedrooms in silence. "So what's the prognosis, doctor?" Erin tried to keep her tone light. Daniel nodded slowly. "It can be saved, but it's going to take time, money, and a lot of work." He handed her a notepad with his assessment and rough cost estimates. Erin's face must have betrayed her shock at the bottom line. "I've broken it down by priority," Daniel added quickly. "The roof has to come first. There's no point in doing anything else until that's fixed. I can help you source materials, maybe even get some discounts through my connections." "And labor costs?" Erin asked hesitantly. Daniel glanced at Caleb, who was pretending not to listen while examining a loose floorboard. "I could work weekends, teach you some basics. That way you could handle some of the simpler stuff yourself." "That would cut costs significantly." "Weekends. I can teach you some basics," Daniel continued. "That way you can do some of the simpler stuff yourself. It would cut down significantly on cost." Erin felt a wave of relief. "That would be incredible. Thank you." "Mom?" Maya's voice echoed from upstairs. "Come up here, you need to see this." Erin and Daniel exchanged glances before heading up the precarious staircase. They found Maya in what would be her bedroom, carefully peeling away layers of faded wallpaper. "Look what I found underneath." Behind the floral pattern were pencil sketches drawn directly on the plaster. Beautiful, detailed illustrations of the town as it had looked decades ago, complete with notes and dates. One section showed the very house they stood in, labeled Home Sweet Home, 1945. "These are amazing," Erin breathed, running her fingers over the lines. "There's a signature," Maya pointed out. "Evelyn W." "Evelyn Whitaker," Daniel nodded. "The original owner. She was quite the local character from what I've heard." "My grandfather used to talk about her," Erin said. "She's still alive. The real estate agent mentioned her. She moved into a smaller place in town a few years ago. That's actually why I was drawn to this house. The connection." Maya kept examining the sketches. "These are really good." She was talented. It was the most enthusiasm Maya had shown about anything since they'd arrived. "We should preserve these," Erin decided. "When we redo this room, we'll leave this wall as is. It's part of the house's story." That afternoon, as Daniel measured the roof for materials, a car pulled up outside. A small, elderly woman with perfectly coiffed white hair made her way carefully up the broken path toward the front door. Erin opened it before she could knock. "Mrs. Whitaker?" The older woman's eyes crinkled. "Erin Dawson. Look at you, all grown up. I'd recognize those eyes anywhere, just like your grandmother's." Erin stepped forward to help her up the porch steps. "Please come in, though I should warn you, the house is in rough shape." Mrs. Whitaker waved off the concern. "I know exactly what shape it's in, dear. I couldn't take care of it properly these last few years. Arthur, that was my husband, he always handled the maintenance. After he passed, well, things started to fall apart." She looked around the entrance hall with a curious mix of sadness and acceptance. "Rather like I did, I suppose?" Living room, where Erin had set up a few folding chairs, the only furniture they currently had besides their sleeping bags. "I heard you'd bought the place," Mrs. Whitaker continued. "People talk in small towns, you know. When I heard it was Margaret's granddaughter, well, I had to come see for myself." She fixed Erin with a knowing look. "You're running from something, aren't you? Just like your grandmother did when she first came to town." Erin was taken aback. "I didn't know Grandma was running from anything." Mrs. Whitaker smiled. "Oh yes, Margaret arrived here in 1952 with a broken engagement behind her and not much else. She thought she'd failed at life. Turned out, life was just getting started." She patted Erin's hand. "This house has seen its share of new beginnings." Just then, Maya appeared in the doorway, hovering uncertainly. "And who might this young lady be?" Mrs. Whitaker asked kindly. "This is my daughter, Maya," Erin said, introducing them. "Maya, this is Mrs. Whitaker. She's the one who drew those pictures upstairs." Mrs. Whitaker's eyes lit up. You found my drawings. Oh my, I'd forgotten all about those. Arthur was always after me to stop drawing on the walls, but I told him, it's our house, who's to say we can't decorate it how we please? Maya stepped forward, curiosity replacing hesitation. They're really good. Did you ever become an artist? In my own small way, Mrs. Whitaker replied. I illustrated children's books for years. Nothing famous, mind you, but it brought me joy. She studied Maya's face. You have an artist's eyes, I can tell. Do you draw? Maya shifted uncomfortably. I used to, not much anymore. Mrs. Whitaker nodded thoughtfully. Well, creative wells run dry. Sometimes they fill back up when you're ready. She turned back to Erin. Now, I didn't just come to reminisce. I've brought you something. She reached into her large handbag and pulled out a worn, leather-bound book. The house diary. Arthur and I recorded everything about this house. When we replaced the water heater, what color we painted each room, where we planted bulbs in the garden. I thought it might help you. Erin accepted the book with reverence. Thank you. This is invaluable. This is invaluable. You'll find your grandmother in there too, Mrs. Whitaker added with a twinkle in her eye. She helped us plant the rose garden in '63, and there was the summer of '67, when a tree branch crashed through the upstairs window during a storm. Your grandfather helped Arthur repair it. She rose with some difficulty. I should be going, but I'll be back to check on your progress. This old house deserves people who love it back to life. As Erin walked her to the door, Mrs. Whitaker paused. It gets better, you know, whatever you're healing from. The cracks don't disappear, but they become part of your story. And sometimes, she added gently, the cracks are how the light gets in. After she left, Erin opened the house diary, flipping through entries that dated back to 1935, when the house was first built. It was a treasure trove of information, where the water main was located, which windows tended to leak, the composition of the original plaster walls. But more than facts, there was feeling. Handwritten notes in faded ink, small doodles in the margins, a recipe tucked between pages. It felt like she was holding the heartbeat of the house. Mom! Caleb's voice called from the backyard. Mr. Ortiz is showing me how to measure for the treehouse repairs. Through the window, Erin could see her son following Daniel around the oak tree, clipboard in hand, his face serious with concentration. She didn't even realize she was smiling until her cheeks ached. It was the happiest she'd seen him since the divorce. That evening, while the kids were occupied, Erin climbed to the attic with a flashlight. The house diary had mentioned storage trunks, and she was curious what might remain. The space was dusty and cramped, filled with cobwebs and the faint skittering sounds of mice. But in the corner, just as described, sat 3 large trunks. The first held old clothes and linens, too moth-eaten to salvage. The second contained Christmas decorations and photo albums, which Erin set aside to examine later. But it was the third trunk that made her breath catch. Inside was a collection of letters tied with faded ribbons. On top, an envelope addressed in her grandmother's handwriting. To Evelyn, my dearest friend. Erin sat back on her heels, flashlight balanced between her shoulder and chin as she carefully opened the envelope. Her hands trembled slightly, the paper thin as breath. It had the distinct scent of cedar and thyme. My dearest Evelyn, as I prepare to leave this world, I find myself thinking of our sanctuary. The hours we spent in your kitchen planning adventures, the afternoons in your garden, sharing our deepest secrets. Your home has been as much a part of my life story as my own. Perhaps someday, one of my girls will find her way back to it when she needs a safe harbor. Just as I once did. A sudden draft moved through the attic, and the loose edges of ribbon fluttered like something had exhaled. Erin wiped away tears. Had her grandmother somehow known she would end up here? Had some quiet force guided her back to this specific house? She gathered the letters and the photo albums and made her way carefully back downstairs to the living room. She found Maya scrolling through her phone, the permanent scowl momentarily absent from her face. What's that? Maya asked, noticing the dusty bundle. History, Erin replied, setting the items down on their makeshift coffee table, a large cardboard box turned upside down. It seems your great-great-grandmother had a special connection to this house. These are letters she wrote to Mrs. Whitaker over the years. Maya set her phone down, a small miracle in itself. Can I see? Erin handed her one of the letters, watching as her daughter carefully unfolded the delicate paper. Evelyn, Maya read aloud. Sometimes I think we women build our true homes in each other's hearts before we ever lay brick and mortar. Your friendship has been my foundation through the stormiest seasons. She looked up at Erin. That's really beautiful. Erin nodded, her throat tight with emotion. Yes, it is. Later that night, after checking that both kids were asleep in their makeshift beds, Erin took out her laptop again. On impulse, she opened Instagram and created a new account. @hollis.house.revival. For the first post, she photographed the exterior of the house at sunset, when the golden light softened its flaws and highlighted its potential. In the caption, she wrote, "Day 1 of our journey. This 1920s colonial might look abandoned and broken, but it's about to become home for one divorced mom and 2 reluctant kids. Follow along as we renovate this house, and maybe ourselves, in the process." She hit post without overthinking, then closed her laptop. Tomorrow they would begin tearing away the damaged parts of the house, making room for what would come next. It felt terrifying, and exactly right. 3 weeks into the renovation, Erin stood in what was now clearly a construction zone rather than a home. Roof repairs had begun, with Daniel and his small weekend crew methodically replacing rotted sections. Inside, Erin and the kids had torn out damaged drywall and pulled up warped flooring, this creating mountains of debris that filled a rented dumpster. The physical labor had been therapeutic for Erin. There was something satisfying about smashing through a water-damaged wall with a sledgehammer. Something healing about stripping away the old to make room for the new. Her muscles ached in ways they never had during her graphic design career. But it was a good ache. Evidence of hard work. Evidence of progress. Maya had gradually begun to help, mostly with the careful removal of salvageable elements, original woodwork, vintage doorknobs, and the few intact light fixtures. Caleb had become Daniel's unofficial apprentice, soaking up construction knowledge like a sponge. Their Instagram account, @hollis.house.revival, had gained a modest following, mostly friends, former colleagues, and renovation enthusiasts who offered advice and encouragement. Erin found herself looking forward to documenting their progress each evening, capturing small victories, like uncovering the original kitchen tiles or discovering an intact stained glass window hidden behind a bookcase. But today, all that progress felt tenuous. Erin stared at her laptop screen, trying to make sense of the numbers that refused to add up. The roof was costing more than estimated. The electrical system was in worse shape than they'd thought. And her freelance graphic design work, the income she was counting on to fund the renovation, had slowed to a trickle. "Hey." Daniel's voice interrupted her financial spiral. He stood in the doorway, work gloves in hand. "We finished the north section of the roof. Want to come see?" Erin closed her laptop. "Sure." She followed him outside, squinting up at the new shingles gleaming against the October sky. "It's looking good," Daniel said. "We should finish the rest this week, if the weather holds." "About that," Erin began hesitantly, "I may need to stretch out the timeline a bit. Financially, things are a little tight right now." Daniel studied her face. "The roof can't wait, Erin, not with winter coming." I know. We'll get the roof done," she said quickly. "It's just, everything after that might need to slow down." She sighed. "I thought I'd have more design projects by now, but it's taking time to rebuild my client base here." "What kind of design do you do?" Daniel asked. "Graphic design. Logos, websites, branding packages. I was pretty established back in the city, but starting over in a small town is different." She managed a wry smile. "Turns out not many local businesses are looking for a rebrand right now." Daniel nodded thoughtfully. "Have you talked to Frank down at the hardware store? His website looks like it hasn't changed since 1998. And my sister owns the new coffee shop on Main. She's been complaining about needing marketing materials." Erin felt a flicker of hope. "Really? Do you think they'd be interested?" "Worth asking. Small towns work on word of mouth. Once you do one good job, others will follow." He hesitated. "And as for the renovation, we could work out a payment plan. Or you could help me with some design work for my contracting business in exchange for labor here," Daniel offered. Before Erin could respond, fat raindrops began to fall. "Looks like that storm's moving in early," Daniel observed, glancing up at the darkening sky. We should get the tarp secured over the unfinished section. They spent the next hour battling increasingly heavy rain and wind, working together to protect the exposed portions of the roof. The wind howled like a living thing, snatching nails from their hands and snapping at the edges of the tarp like it wanted inside. By the time they finished, both were soaked to the skin. You should head home, Erin told Daniel as they stood dripping in the entryway. It's getting bad out there. As if in response, a crack of thunder shook the house, followed by the lights flickering once, twice, then going out completely. The silence that followed was dense, broken only by the hiss of rain and the soft whimper of the house adjusting to the pressure. Caleb appeared from the kitchen, flashlight already in hand. Power's out, Mom? Perfect, Erin muttered. Just perfect. I'll check the breaker box before I go, Daniel offered, accepting the flashlight from Caleb. Where's your sister? Erin asked, peeling off her wet jacket. Her stomach twisted. Maya hadn't said a word since breakfast. Caleb shrugged. Upstairs, with her headphones probably. Erin made her way carefully up the stairs in the dim light. Maya? We've lost power, she called. No response. She knocked on Maya's closed door, then slowly pushed it open to find the room empty. Frowning, Erin checked the bathroom and the other bedrooms, then hurried back downstairs. She's not up there, Erin told Caleb, trying to keep the worry from her voice. Did she say she was going anywhere? Caleb shook his head. I haven't seen her since lunch. A cold feeling settled in Erin's stomach. It was the same feeling she'd had the night her husband confessed he wasn't coming back. Maya? She called, moving from room to room. Maya, where are you? Daniel returned from the basement. Breaker's fine. It's a neighborhood outage. But we've got another problem. There's water coming in from somewhere. The basement's starting to flood. But Erin barely registered his words. Maya's missing. She's not in the house. Maybe she's in the treehouse, Caleb suggested. In this storm? Erin asked. But even as she questioned it, she was already moving toward the back door. Lightning cracked overhead, briefly illuminating the skeletal outline of the tree. Erin's heart jumped. It would be just like Maya to retreat to the half-renovated treehouse, heedless of the weather. The three of them ventured into the downpour, calling Maya's name. The wind screamed back, drowning their voices. Leaves slapped their faces. Erin's shoes sank into the muddy earth with each step. The treehouse was empty, leaves and rain blowing in through its open window frame. A notebook lay inside, soggy and abandoned. Erin recognized it instantly. Maya's sketchbook. Her breath caught. Could she have gone to a friend's house? Daniel asked, having to shout over the wind. She doesn't have any friends here yet, Erin replied, panic rising in her throat. She's made that abundantly clear. They retreated back inside, all of them now drenched. Erin grabbed her phone, finding it down to 20% battery. I'm calling the police, she said, just as she was about to. Dial. The front door burst open, and Maya stumbled in, soaking wet and spattered with mud. Maya, Erin rushed to her. Where were you? We were worried sick. Maya's face was tear-streaked beneath the rain. I just needed to get out, okay? This house was suffocating me. In the middle of a storm? What were you thinking? Relief was rapidly shifting into anger in Erin's voice. I was at the library. I just lost track of time, and then it started raining and my phone died. Maya pulled away from Erin's reach. Stop treating me like I'm a child. You're 15, Maya. You are a child. And you can't just disappear without telling anyone where you're going. Like you told us before you decided to move us to this dump? Maya snapped. Like you told us before you and Dad decided to get divorced? Her voice cracked. You make all these decisions that ruin our lives, then act like I'm the irresponsible one. Erin reeled as if she'd been slapped. The accusation stung, all the more because some part of her feared it was true. Maya, that's not fair to your mom, Daniel interjected gently. Stay out of it, Maya snapped. You're not part of this family. Maya Dawson, Erin admonished. Apologize, right now. Why should I? It's the truth. He's just some guy you hired who probably feels sorry for us. Maya stormed past them toward the stairs. I hate this house. I hate this town. And I hate what our family has become. Her bedroom door slammed shut, the sound reverberating through the half-demolished house. An uncomfortable silence settled in, broken only by the steady drip of water from multiple leaks that had sprung up during the storm. I'm sorry about that, Erin finally said to Daniel, mortification burning her cheeks. Don't be, he replied. Teenagers, plus divorce, plus renovation? That's a lot for anyone to handle. Caleb stood awkwardly nearby, his eyes wide and worried. Is Maya going to be okay? Erin put an arm around his shoulders. She will be. We all will. It's just a rough patch. Speaking of rough patches, Daniel said, we should check on that basement flooding before it gets worse. The basement revealed the full extent of the storm's damage. Water was seeping in through the foundation walls and pooling several inches deep on the concrete floor. The ancient water heater stood in the growing puddle, making ominous popping sounds. This isn't good, Daniel said, wading through the water to examine the heater. We need to shut this off before it shorts out completely. As they worked to mitigate the flooding, bringing buckets, towels, and the shop vacuum, Daniel had left on site. Erin felt a crushing weight of defeat pressing down on her. The house seemed to be fighting back, revealing new problems faster than they could solve the old ones. By midnight, the storm had finally passed, though the power remained out. Daniel had stayed to help with emergency measures, but the damage was significant. Water had seeped up through the floorboards in several downstairs rooms. The newly exposed wooden subfloor was already warped and stained. We'll assess everything in daylight, Daniel said as he prepared to leave. It might look better once things dry out. But they both knew he was being optimistic. After he left, Erin sat alone in the dark kitchen, a battery-powered lantern casting long shadows on the walls. Caleb had finally fallen asleep, and Maya remained barricaded in her room. The house creaked and settled around her, water still dripping from somewhere into a pot she'd placed on the floor. She pulled out her phone, now plugged into her laptop for charging, and opened the camera roll, scrolling back. She found photos from their previous life, the spacious suburban home with its perfect lawn, the kids smiling at birthday parties, family vacations with her now ex-husband. They looked happy, untroubled. Had it all been an illusion? On impulse, she opened Instagram and began typing. Tonight, our renovation hit rock bottom. Literally. Our basement is flooded, the power is out, and my teenage daughter just told me she hates everything about our new life. Sometimes I wonder if I've made a terrible mistake. Is trying to save this old house just another way of avoiding the truth that some things can't be fixed? Her finger hovered over the post button. Was she really going to share this vulnerability with strangers? With a deep breath, she pressed post, then set the phone aside. Morning arrived with weak sunlight filtering through windows still streaked with yesterday's rain. Erin had fallen asleep at the kitchen table, her neck stiff and aching. The power was still out and the house felt damp, colder than before. She made her way to the basement stairs, dreading what she would find. The water level had receded slightly but left behind a layer of silt and debris. The water heater was definitely dead, another major expense she hadn't budgeted for. As she stood surveying the damage, footsteps approached behind her. Is it bad? Maya's voice was quiet, all the anger from the weight of the previous night seemed to drain away. Erin turned to find her daughter standing on the stairs, looking small and uncertain in her oversized sweater. It's not great, Erin admitted, glancing back at the basement. But it's fixable. Maya nodded, coming to stand beside her mother. I'm sorry about last night, she said quietly. I shouldn't have said those things. Her voice cracked slightly on the last word, and she quickly looked down, like the floor might swallow the guilt clinging to her. Erin put an arm around her shoulders, surprised when Maya didn't pull away. The gesture felt unfamiliar, but comforting, like muscle memory from a better time. Some of what you said was true, Erin admitted. I did make decisions that affected your life, without giving you much choice. I'm sorry for that part. There was a long pause, like Maya was testing if the silence would hurt more than the truth. You didn't choose the divorce though, did you? Maya asked, her voice small. Dad did. Because of her. Erin hesitated. She'd been careful never to vilify her ex-husband to the kids, even though his affair with a much younger colleague had been the final break. The memory flashed across her mind like a wound she thought had closed. His suitcase by the door, her trying to stay strong for the children who didn't understand why he wasn't coming back. Relationships are complicated, Maya, but no, I didn't choose for our family to break up. Maya leaned against her mother slightly. Just that, her weight against Erin's side, felt like the first brick being laid in something new. I don't really hate it here. Not all of it, anyway. No? Erin smiled faintly. What parts don't you hate? The drawings on my wall, Mrs. Whitaker. The way you can see so many stars at night. She paused, biting her lip, as if debating whether to say the next part. The treehouse has potential too. It wasn't much, but it felt like a significant peace offering, and Erin accepted it like someone handed a fragile gift wrapped in forgiveness. What are we going to do about all this? Maya gestured at the flooded basement. Erin took a deep breath. First, we're going to have breakfast. Then we're going to make a list, and then we're going to figure it out, one problem at a time. As they turned to head back upstairs, Erin's phone buzzed with a notification. She glanced down and saw dozens of responses to her late-night Instagram post. Messages of encouragement, advice about flood damage, even offers of help from local followers who recognized the Hollis house. Strangers turned neighbors. Neighbors turned lifelines. One comment in particular caught her eye. Every renovation has a moment when you want to give up. That's usually right before the breakthrough. Hang in there. Evelyn W., Mrs. Whitaker. Mrs. Whitaker was on Instagram. Erin hadn't even known the elderly woman owned a computer. The simple message brought tears to her eyes, not of despair this time, but of gratitude. Perhaps they weren't as alone in this as she'd feared. What is it? Maya asked, noticing her mother's expression. Erin showed her the phone. It seems we have more support than I realized. By afternoon, the full extent of the storm's damage had become clear in the harsh light of day. Beyond the basement flooding, a section of the newly repaired roof had been compromised. Several windows were leaking. The yard had turned into a muddy swamp. The power remained out, with the electric company estimating restoration by evening. Erin sat at the kitchen table. Calculator in hand, Erin sat at the kitchen table, trying to figure out how to stretch their limited budget to cover the latest disasters. No matter how she juggled the numbers, they came up short. A knock at the door interrupted her calculations. She opened it to find Daniel, and behind him, a small group of people she didn't recognize. "Hope you don't mind the company," Daniel said. "Word got around town about the storm damage. These folks wanted to help." A middle-aged woman stepped forward. "I'm Linda, from the hardware store, Frank's wife. We brought some fans to help dry things out once the power's back." She gestured to a truck parked in the driveway, loaded with equipment. An older man in overalls introduced himself next. "Jim Peterson. I do plumbing work when these young fellas get stumped," he said with a nod toward Daniel. "Thought I'd take a look at your water heater situation." One by one, the neighbors introduced themselves. A retired contractor, a landscape designer, a high school woodshop teacher. People Erin had never met, but who had seen her Instagram posts or heard about the Hollis house renovation through town gossip. "You don't have to do this," Erin said, overwhelmed by the unexpected support. "Sure we do," Linda replied matter-of-factly. "That's how small towns work. You'll do the same for someone else someday." As the impromptu work crew dispersed throughout the house, Erin caught Daniel's eye. "Did you organize this?" He shook his head. "Can't take credit. Mrs. Whitaker called me this morning, said she'd been following your Instagram and thought the house needed all hands on deck today." He smiled. Apparently, she made quite a few calls. Throughout the day, more people arrived, bringing tools, expertise, and food. Caleb emerged from his initial shyness to proudly show visitors the treehouse renovation plans he'd been working on. Even Maya ventured downstairs, eventually helping a local art teacher sort through salvageable materials from the basement. By evening, the power had been restored. Industrial fans were drying out the worst affected areas. The dead water heater had been removed, the leaking windows temporarily sealed. What had seemed like an insurmountable disaster that morning now felt manageable. As the last of the helpers departed, promising to return the following weekend, Erin stood on the porch watching the sunset. The house behind her hummed with the sound of fans and dehumidifiers, evidence of damage, but also of renewal. Daniel joined her, wiping his hands on a rag. "We made good progress today." Erin nodded. "I don't know how to thank everyone," Erin said. "You could start by coming to the town festival next weekend," Daniel suggested. It'd be a good opportunity to meet more people, maybe even pick up some design clients. A festival? Harvest Festival, he nodded. It's a big deal around here. Craft booths, food vendors, local businesses showcasing their services. My contracting company always has a booth. He hesitated. Actually, I was thinking, you mentioned needing more design work, and I've been wanting to update my company's logo and website. Maybe we could work out a trade? Your design services in exchange for some of the more specialized renovation work you need. The offer was exactly what Erin needed, professionally and financially. That sounds perfect, actually. After Daniel left, Erin took out her phone and opened Instagram once more. She photographed the now crowded driveway, filled with trucks and cars from their community helpers, and typed, 4 hours ago, I thought we'd hit rock bottom. Today, I learned that rock can be a foundation, if you have the right people helping you build. To everyone who showed up today, thank you for reminding us what community means. That night, for the first time since they'd moved in, Erin fell asleep with a sense of hope, stronger than her fears. The Harvest Festival transformed the small town's main street into a bustling marketplace. Colorful booths lined both sides of the road, the smell of kettle corn and apple cider donuts filling the air. Children dashed between hay bales and cornstalk decorations, while local musicians played from a small stage in the town square. Erin stood behind a makeshift booth she shared with Daniel's contracting company. She'd spent the past week creating new branding for his business, a clean, modern logo that still captured the warmth and trustworthiness his local reputation was built on. Around it, she displayed samples of her other design work and business cards featuring her new company name, Foundations Design Studio. "What do you think?" she asked as Daniel returned with coffee for both of them. "I think you're going to be turning away clients by the end of the day," he replied, admiring the professional display. "The new logo looks even better printed than it did on screen." Caleb darted up to the booth, his face painted like a tiger. "Mom, they have a wooden boat building contest for kids. Can I enter?" "Of course," Erin smiled, handing him a few dollars. "Where's your sister?" "Over there." Caleb pointed across the square, where Maya stood, talking to a girl about her age, both of them examining something on the other girl's phone. "She made a friend," Caleb reported. "Her name's Olivia, and she's into art too." Erin tried not to look too surprised or too pleased. Any reaction might send Maya retreating back into her shell. "That's great, honey. Have fun with the boat building." As Caleb dashed off, Daniel nudged Erin gently. "Looks like your first potential client is headed this way." A woman in her 30s approached the booth, flipping through Erin's portfolio. "Are you the one renovating the old Hollis place?" she asked. "I've been following your Instagram." "That's me," Erin confirmed. "Erin Dawson. I'm Jesse Miller. I own the bookstore down the block, Miller's Pages. We're long overdue for a website overhaul, and I love what you've done here." She gestured to Daniel's new branding materials. By midday, Erin had collected contact information from 6 potential clients: the bookstore, a local bakery, a bed and breakfast looking to attract more tourists, and several individuals interested in personal branding for their small businesses. "You're a hit," Daniel observed during a lull in foot traffic. "How does it feel to be the town's hot new designer?" Erin laughed. "Surreal. A month ago, I was wondering if I'd made the biggest mistake of my life. Now, it almost feels like it was meant to be." "Speaking of meant to be," Daniel nodded toward the far end of the street. "Isn't that your daughter up on stage?" Erin turned to see Maya standing with her new friend Olivia and several other teenagers near the small stage where musicians had been performing. After a brief announcement from the festival coordinator, Maya stepped up to the microphone. "Hi," her voice echoed tentatively across the square. "I'm Maya Dawson. My mom and I are renovating the old Hollis house, and while tearing down walls, we found some amazing artwork hidden behind the wallpaper. Mrs. Whitaker, Evelyn, did these drawings decades ago, and they inspired me to start drawing again." She gestured to an easel beside her. "This is my first piece in a long time. It's called Uncovered." She unveiled a striking charcoal drawing of their house, not as it currently appeared, half renovated and rough, but as it might one day be, with light streaming from the windows and a family visible inside. Erin felt tears spring to her eyes. Maya hadn't shown her the drawing, hadn't even mentioned she was working on art again. The cool thing about renovation, Maya continued, her voice growing stronger, is that sometimes when you tear something down, you find something better underneath. I guess that can be true for families too, not just houses. She made brief eye contact with Erin across the crowd. It was fleeting, but enough to say, "I see you. I understand now. Anyway, thanks for letting me share." The audience applauded warmly as Maya and the other young artists displayed their work. Erin wanted to rush over and hug her daughter, but she held back, sensing Maya needed this moment of independence. Her daughter was standing on her own, not just on that stage, but in her own skin for the first time in a long while. "That's quite a girl you've got there," came a familiar voice beside her. Erin turned to find Mrs. Whitaker, elegantly dressed and leaning on a cane. "Mrs. Whitaker, I didn't know you'd be here today." "Wouldn't miss the Harvest Festival," the elderly woman replied. "It's been a tradition for 70 years. She nodded toward Maya. "She's finding her way back to herself, just like you are. It always starts with creation. When we make something, we remember who we are," she added, her voice soft. Erin smiled. "I think we all are. Thank you, by the way, for rallying the troops after the storm. I don't know what we would have done without everyone's help." "That wasn't me," Mrs. Whitaker said with a twinkle in her eye. "That was the house." "The house?" "The Hollis house has always brought people together. It was a gathering place for decades. Dinner parties, community meetings, children's birthdays. First kisses on the back porch, secret toasts in the pantry. More stories than the walls can hold. The house remembers, even if the people sometimes forget." She patted Erin's hand. "You're restoring more than just walls and floors, my dear. You're restoring memory. And memory has a way of stitching up even the most tattered hearts." Before Erin could respond, Caleb came racing up, proudly displaying a small wooden boat painted in bright colors. "I got second place, Mom." "That's wonderful, honey. Did you make it all yourself?" Caleb nodded enthusiastically. "Mr. Ortiz helped a little with the sanding, but I did the rest. The judge said my design was innovative." He beamed, holding the boat like it was made of gold. He turned to Mrs. Whitaker. "Did you see Maya's drawing? It's really good." "It certainly is," Mrs. Whitaker agreed. "Both of you have hidden talents, it seems." "Caleb's been redesigning the treehouse," Erin added with a smile. "He's got quite an eye for structure." "Takes after his mother," Daniel commented, joining the conversation. "Good to see you, Mrs. Whitaker. How's that loose porch railing I fixed for you holding up?" "Solid as a rock, Daniel. You always do fine work." Mrs. Whitaker glanced between him and Erin with a knowing smile. "Two builders, one house. You'd be surprised how often that story ends in a happy renovation," she teased. "I should find myself a seat for the pie contest judging." She turned to Caleb. "Would you be a gentleman and escort an old lady to the tent?" Caleb proudly offered his arm, and the two set off across the square, leaving Erin and Daniel alone at the booth. "She's matchmaking," Erin said, feeling her cheeks warm slightly. Daniel laughed. "Mrs. Whitaker has been trying to find me a wife for years. Don't take it personally." "I won't," Erin assured him, though something about his easy dismissal left her feeling oddly disappointed. The rest of the festival passed in a pleasant blur. Maya remained with her new friends, occasionally waving to Erin from across the square. Caleb shuttled between the children's activities and the booth, bringing updates and samples of festival food. By closing time, Erin had lined up enough design projects to keep her busy and solvent for months. As they packed up the booth materials, Daniel asked, "Need help getting all this back to the house?" "That would be great," Erin nodded. "Actually, I've been meaning to ask your opinion about the kitchen renovation. Now that we've handled the emergency repairs, I'd like to start planning the next phase." Back at the house, with the kids occupied in their respective spaces, Caleb in the treehouse, Maya in her room with Olivia, Erin spread kitchen design ideas across the dining table they'd recently salvaged from a thrift store. "I'm torn between trying to restore the original 1930s style and going with something more modern, but still compatible with the house's character," she explained, showing Daniel her sketches. He studied them thoughtfully. "Both would work. The question is, what feels right to you? This is your home, after all." "That's just it," Erin said, surprised by the emotion in her voice. "It really is starting to feel like home." I didn't expect that to happen so quickly. Houses become homes when the right people live in them, Daniel replied. I've renovated dozens of properties, and you can always tell the difference between a house being flipped for profit and one being transformed with love. Erin looked up at him, struck by his insight. In the weeks since the storm, Daniel had become more than just a contractor. He was a friend, a confidant, someone who understood both the technical and emotional aspects of her renovation journey. Speaking of transformations, she said, changing the subject, the kids seem to be settling in better. Maya's making friends, and Caleb's becoming quite the junior carpenter, thanks to you. Daniel smiled. They're great kids. Caleb's got a natural talent for building things, and Maya, well, that artwork today was impressive. I had no idea she was drawing again, Erin admitted. After the divorce, she stopped doing anything creative. It was like that part of her just shut down. Sometimes we need to tear down before we can rebuild, Daniel said, echoing Maya's words from earlier. That applies to people as much as houses. Their conversation was interrupted by a knock at the door. Erin opened it to find a small crowd gathered on her porch, led by Mrs. Whitaker and including several of the neighbors who had helped after the storm. We thought you might like some company for dinner, Mrs. Tormat Whitaker announced. Everyone brought something. Behind her, neighbors held casserole dishes, salad bowls, and dessert platters. This is so thoughtful, Erin said, stepping back to let them in. But I'm afraid the dining room is still a work in progress. Not a problem, said one of the women, whom Erin recognized as the local librarian. We thought we'd eat in the backyard. It's a beautiful evening, and Jim brought his portable fire pit. Before Erin could process what was happening, her backyard had been transformed into an impromptu dinner party. Folding tables appeared. String lights were hung between the trees. The fire pit was set up in a cleared space near the treehouse. Caleb helped arrange chairs, while Maya and Olivia were enlisted to set the tables. Daniel organized a makeshift serving area on the back porch. Within 30 minutes, it felt as though Erin had planned this gathering herself. As dusk fell, the backyard glowed with warm light. 20 people sat around mismatched tables, passing dishes and sharing stories. Erin found herself seated between Mrs. Whitaker and the high school art teacher, Miss Ramirez, who had taken an interest in Maya's talent. Your daughter has real potential, Miss Ramirez told her. I've invited her to join our after-school art club. We meet twice a week. That's wonderful, Erin replied. I've been hoping she'd find an outlet here. Mrs. Whitaker leaned closer. I brought something for you. She handed Erin a small wrapped package. Open it when you have a quiet moment. From the treehouse, laughter erupted as Caleb showed his new friends the improvements he'd been planning. Maya sat at the far end of the table, animated in conversation with Olivia and 2 other teenagers, looking more like her old self than Erin had seen in over a year. Daniel caught her eye from across the gathering and raised his glass in a subtle toast. Erin returned the gesture, feeling a warmth that had nothing to do with the fire pit. Later, after the guests had departed and the children had gone to bed, Erin sat alone on the back porch with Mrs. Whitaker's gift. Carefully unwrapping it, she found a small, framed. Inside the wrapping was a watercolor painting of the house, Hollis Place, as it had looked in its prime. A vibrant garden, a welcoming porch, windows aglow with light. A note tucked into the frame, read, "The house as it was and as it will be again. Some places hold magic. They attract the right people at the right time. This house has been waiting for you, Evelyn." Erin held the painting in her lap, looking out at the yard, now returned to darkness, but still holding the echoes of laughter and conversation from earlier. For the first time since the divorce, she felt truly at peace with her decision to start over in this place. The following weeks brought steady progress on the house. With the emergency repairs behind them and Erin's design business gaining momentum, they were able to begin the more enjoyable aspects of the renovation. Choosing colors, designing spaces, making the house truly theirs. Maya's room was completed first, with one wall preserved to showcase Evelyn's original drawings. The remaining walls were painted a soft blue-gray that Maya had selected. Erin had splurged on a window seat so her daughter could draw in natural light. Caleb's room followed, with built-in shelving for his growing collection of model boats and construction vehicles. He had worked alongside Daniel to install the shelves, beaming with pride when they were perfectly level. The kitchen renovation began in earnest, with Erin opting for a blend of vintage charm and modern functionality. Original elements were restored where possible and paired with new additions that respected the house's character. Throughout it all, their social media documentation continued. Their follower count grew as people connected with the honest portrayal of both successes and setbacks. Erin began receiving messages from other divorced mothers, homeowners in the middle of their own renovations, and locals sharing memories of the Hollis house in its heyday. One evening, as November turned the air crisp and the last of the autumn leaves clung to the old oak tree, Erin sat on the newly restored front porch with Daniel, reviewing plans for the dining room. "I think we're actually ahead of schedule," she remarked, surprised by the realization. "At this rate, we might have the major renovations done by Christmas." Daniel nodded. "The community help has made a huge difference. Plus, you and the kids have learned fast. You're doing work now that I would have had to charge you for 2 months ago." "It's been good for all of us," Erin agreed. Caleb's confidence has soared, and Maya, she glanced through the window. Her daughter sat at the kitchen table, sketchpad open before her. "Maya's finding herself again," Erin said softly. There was something sacred in the way Maya held her pencil now, like creation was her way back to the world. "And what about you?" Daniel asked quietly. "Are you finding yourself too?" Erin considered the question. For a moment, she didn't speak. "How do you describe the slow return of a soul that's been lost in survival?" "I think I'm finding a new self, someone stronger than I knew I could be." She smiled. Not the polished smile she used with clients, or the strained one she used when the kids were watching. This one was real. A little tired, a little proud, but real. "Turns out, I'm pretty good with a power drill." "Among other things," Daniel added, "your design business is taking off. You've managed this renovation like a pro, and somehow you've kept it all together, through storms both literal and metaphorical." "Not by myself," Erin pointed out. "I've had help. The kids, the community, Mrs. Whitaker." She hesitated. The pause between words was deliberate, as if saying it aloud might change something. "You." Their eyes met, and Erin felt a flutter of something she hadn't experienced in a long time, possibility. The kind that scared her, just a little, but also made her feel alive. Not just for the house, but for herself. Daniel cleared his throat. He looked away, briefly, like he didn't want to rush a moment that mattered. "Speaking of the community, the Winter Lights Festival is coming up next month. It's another town tradition. Every house on Main Street gets decorated. There's a parade, hot chocolate." He paused. "I was wondering if you and the kids might want to go with me?" "Like a date?" Erin asked, her heart suddenly racing. The question hung in the air, more vulnerable than she meant it to be. "Like a family outing," Daniel clarified. "But yes, also like a date, if that's something you might be interested in." His voice was steady, but his eyes searched hers, waiting for the part of her that might still be afraid to hope. Before Erin could respond, Maya pushed open the front door. "Lam, Mrs. Whitaker is on the phone. She wants to know if we're still planning to host Thanksgiving here, or if it's too much with the renovation." Erin realized she'd forgotten all about her impulsive offer, made during the backyard dinner, to host Thanksgiving for their new friends. "Tell her yes," Erin decided. "We're still on. The dining room's not finished, but we'll make it work." As Maya disappeared back inside, Erin turned to Daniel. "The Winter Lights Festival sounds wonderful. We'd love to go with you." His smile warmed her more than the porch's new space heater. "It's a date, then. A family date." The phrase family date echoed in her chest, soft and terrifying. But also, right, the phrase family date lingered in Erin's mind long after Daniel had gone home. Was that what they were becoming? A family of sorts, not in the traditional sense, but something new, something equally meaningful. She thought of how Caleb looked up to Daniel, how Maya had begun sharing her artwork with him, even asking for his opinion on colors for her room. She thought of the easy way he fit into their lives, bringing not just construction knowledge, but patience, humor, and stability. Not just a builder of homes, a restorer of peace, exactly when they needed it most. It was too soon to put labels on whatever was developing between them. But like the house itself, their relationship had good bones, a solid foundation on which something beautiful might be built, given time and care. That night, Erin added an entry to the growing house diary she'd started keeping, inspired by the original one from the Whitakers. Today I realize that home isn't just about having a roof over your head. It's about creating a space where healing can happen, where new beginnings are possible. This old house is teaching us that broken doesn't mean beyond repair, for buildings or for people. The weeks leading up to Thanksgiving flew by in a blur of painting, sanding, and finishing touches. The dining room had become the focal point of their efforts, a space large enough to accommodate the 15 guests Erin had impulsively invited for the holiday. Original wainscoting had been carefully restored. Walls painted a warm sage green above it. The massive oak table that had come with the house was refinished by Daniel and Erin over several evenings, their conversations flowing as easily as the Danish oil they rubbed into the wood. Maya had created artwork for the walls, not just her own pieces, but carefully framed selections of Evelyn's original drawings discovered throughout the house. Caleb had built a centerpiece with salvaged wood from the renovation, a miniature version of the Hollis house designed to hold candles for the Thanksgiving table. The night before Thanksgiving, Erin stood in the nearly completed dining room, mentally reviewing her checklist. The kitchen renovation wasn't finished, but it was functional enough for holiday cooking. The living room still needed work, but the dining room, downstairs bathroom, and entrance hall were ready for company. "Mom?" Caleb appeared in the doorway, wearing pajamas and clutching his tablet. "Can I show you something?" Erin sat on one of the newly reupholstered dining chairs, patting the seat beside her. "Of course, honey. What is it?" Caleb settled next to her and opened a presentation app on his tablet. "It's my school project. We had to create something about home and what it means to us." He started the slideshow, which began with a photo of their old house in the city. "This was our first home," Caleb narrated. "It was nice, but after Mom and Dad decided not to be married anymore, it didn't feel like home should feel." Erin's throat tightened as he advanced to the next slide, a photo of the Hollis house the day they arrived. Dilapidated, unwelcoming, rain pouring in sheets. "This is our new house. When we first saw it," Caleb continued, "it looked scary and broken. I didn't think it could ever be a home." The next series of slides showed the renovation process, the roof repair, the treehouse reconstruction, the community workday after the storm. Photos of Daniel teaching Caleb how to use tools, of Maya uncovering the wall drawings, of Erin painting the kitchen cabinets late into the night. But then something amazing happened. Caleb's narration continued. "We started fixing the broken parts. And as we fixed the house, something else got fixed too." The final slide showed a recent photo Erin had taken for their social media. The three of them, plus Daniel on the front porch, all smiling. The house behind them looked increasingly charming with its new paint and restored details. "This is our home now," Caleb concluded. "It's not perfect yet, but it's getting better every day, like us." Erin pulled her son into a tight hug, blinking back tears. "That's beautiful, Caleb. I think it's your best project ever." "Miss Patterson said I should add more about the historical aspects of the house," Caleb said, his voice muffled against her shoulder. "But I thought the people part was more important." "The people part is always more important," Erin agreed, kissing the top of his head. "The house is just the shell that holds us." From the doorway came a soft sound. Erin looked up to find Maya watching them, her expression uncharacteristically vulnerable. "That was a good presentation, Squirt," she told her brother with gruff affection. "Thanks." Caleb beamed at the rare compliment from his sister. "Want to see the animation I added for the final version?" As Caleb showed Maya his project, Erin slipped away into the kitchen. The emotional moment had reminded her just how far they'd come in a few short months. From that first rainy night of regret to now, preparing to host Thanksgiving in their partially renovated but increasingly beautiful home. She began pulling out ingredients for the pies she planned to bake early the next morning. The kitchen still had exposed subfloor in places, and the new island was only partially installed, but the vintage stove had been restored to working order, and the freshly painted cabinets brightened the space considerably. A knock at the back door surprised her. Through the window, She saw Daniel standing on the porch, holding something large and wrapped in a drop cloth. "Late delivery," he explained as she opened the door. "I wanted to get this installed before tomorrow." "What is it?" Erin asked as he carefully maneuvered the wrapped object into the kitchen. "A housewarming gift. Or maybe a pre-Thanksgiving gift." Daniel set it against the wall and pulled away the cloth to reveal a stunning piece of stained glass. A window panel featuring a craftsman-style design in amber, green, and blue tones. "Daniel, it's beautiful," Erin breathed, running her fingers over the smooth glass pieces. "Where did you find it?" "I made it," he admitted with a hint of shyness. "It's a hobby of mine. I thought it might look good in that transom window above the front door. The measurements should be exact." Erin was speechless. The window wasn't just beautiful. It perfectly matched the house's architectural style and the color palette they'd chosen for the renovation. "You made this for us?" Daniel nodded. "I started it after the storm. Something about how you refused to give up on this place, even when it was literally underwater, it inspired me." Erin impulsively wrapped her arms around him. "Thank you. It's the most thoughtful gift anyone has ever given us." Daniel returned the embrace, his work-roughened hands gentle on her back. "You're welcome," he murmured into her hair. They stood that way for a long moment, until footsteps on the stairs broke them apart. "Is that a stained glass window?" Maya asked, entering the kitchen with Caleb close behind. "Daniel made it, for our house," Erin explained, her cheeks warm. "That is so cool," Caleb declared, stepping closer to examine the craftsmanship. "Can you teach me how to make these?" Daniel laughed. "It takes practice, but sure. Maybe we can start with something small after the holidays." "It matches the colors in my mural," Maya observed, referring to the design she'd been painting in the upstairs hallway. An artistic family tree that incorporated elements from both the house's history and their own. "Great minds think alike," Daniel told her with a wink. Together, the four of them carried the stained glass window to the front entrance. Daniel had brought the necessary tools, and within an hour, the stained glass was installed in the transom space, catching the last light of the evening and casting soft, colored patterns across the refinished floor. "It's like the final puzzle piece," Erin said, standing back to admire the effect. "Now the house finally looks the way it was meant to." That night, after Daniel had gone and the kids were in bed, Erin stood alone in the quiet house, taking in how far they'd come. The sagging porch had been rebuilt, the leaking roof replaced, the rotting floors restored, light switches worked, water flowed from faucets without alarming noises. Heat circulated evenly through the old radiators. But more importantly, laughter echoed in the halls again. Maya's art adorned the walls. Caleb's projects filled the new workshop area in the garage, and Erin had found not just stability, but strength. She looked up at the stained glass, still glowing faintly in the moonlight. It wasn't just a window. It was a symbol of everything they'd rebuilt, and everything still to come. She had found not just a career renaissance, but a new sense of capability and strength. Thanksgiving morning dawned clear and crisp, perfect late November weather. Erin rose early to begin cooking, only to find Maya already in the kitchen, apron on, pie dough rolled out on the counter. "I couldn't sleep," her daughter explained. "I thought I'd get started on the pie. Grandma used to let me help with the crimping." She didn't look up when she said it, but Erin caught the tremble in her voice, a small ache wrapped in flour and memory. Erin felt a wave of emotion. She remembered holidays past, when Maya and her mother had baked together. The kitchen then had been filled with laughter, not tension, back when joy didn't feel so fragile. It was a tradition that had quietly disappeared during the troubled final years of her marriage. "I'd love the help," Erin said simply, tying on her own apron. They worked side by side in comfortable silence, the familiar rhythm of baking bringing them closer than any conversation could. Each roll of dough, each sprinkle of sugar, felt like mending something they hadn't dared name. When Caleb appeared an hour later, he was put in charge of setting the dining table, a responsibility he took with surprising seriousness. He carefully arranged the mismatched vintage china they'd collected from thrift stores. He stood back to admire it when he finished, then ran to his room and returned with pine cones and acorns he'd gathered for decoration. Erin blinked back unexpected tears. By noon, the house was filled with delicious aromas, and the first guests began to arrive. Mrs. Whitaker came early, bearing an heirloom serving platter and a weathered cookbook. "My grandmother's recipes," she explained, handing the book to Erin. "They've waited long enough to feed a new family. I thought they should stay with the house." Daniel arrived with his sister and her family. His niece clung to his leg until she saw the dessert table. Neighbors and new friends followed, each bringing food and stories to share. The dining room filled with conversation and laughter. The table crowded, but cozy. The chairs didn't match, and the tablecloth was patchwork from old linens, but it was perfect. The house, somehow, seeming to expand to embrace them all. Before they ate, Erin stood at the head of the table, suddenly emotional at the sight before her. This collection of people who had become so important to their lives in such a short time. She took a moment, placing her hand on the back of a chair to steady herself, not from nerves, but from awe. "I want to thank everyone for coming today," she began. "A few months ago, when we first arrived at this house, I wasn't sure we'd ever feel at home here. The renovation seemed impossible, and starting over felt overwhelming." Her voice wavered, but she didn't look away. This was her truth, and she wasn't ashamed of it. She glanced at her children, then at Daniel, and finally at Mrs. Whitaker. "But you all showed us that impossible just means you haven't found the right help yet." She raised her glass. "To new beginnings, to old houses with good bones, and to the people who help us rebuild when life tears down our walls." Her voice was stronger now. Sure, like the beams they'd replaced, only better. "Here, here," came the response around the table, glasses raised in return. As the meal progressed, Erin found herself watching her children. Maya engaged in animated conversation with Mrs. Whitaker about art schools. Her eyes sparkled with ideas, her laughter effortless. Caleb demonstrating his latest woodworking techniques to Daniel's nephews. He used words like joinery and grain direction with a seriousness that made Erin smile. They were thriving in ways she couldn't have imagined that first rainy night. After dinner, while pie was being served, Mrs. Whitaker beckoned Erin into the living room. "I have something else for you," the elderly woman said, reaching into her handbag. Her fingers trembled slightly, not from age, but from the weight of what she was about to pass on. "It's been sitting in my apartment all these years, but it belongs here." She withdrew a small velvet pouch and placed it in Erin's palm. Inside was an antique brass key. Time had softened its shine, but it was still beautiful, worn smooth from decades of use, like a secret waiting to be retold. "The original key to the front door," Mrs. Whitaker explained. "Arthur had it made into a necklace for me on our 40th anniversary. I'd like you to have it now." "Evelyn, I couldn't possibly." But Mrs. Whitaker closed Erin's fingers gently around the key. The gesture was firm, final, an unspoken blessing passed from one guardian to the next. "The house has chosen you," she said softly. "I've known it from the moment you arrived. This house needed a family that understood what it means to be broken and repaired, a family that could appreciate its scars and imperfections, and love it not despite them, but because of them." Erin's eyes filled with tears. This wasn't just about the house. This was about belonging, redemption, legacy. "Thank you for everything. Your friendship has meant so much to us, to me." Mrs. Whitaker patted her hand. "Margaret would be proud of you. She always said you had grit, even as a little girl. And look at you now," she added, voice thick with fondness. "You've rebuilt more than walls." She glanced toward the dining room, where Daniel was helping Caleb serve pie to the guests. "And she would approve of that young man. He has good eyes, honest eyes." Erin felt herself blushing. "We're just friends. It's too soon for anything else." "At my age, my dear, nothing seems too soon anymore," Mrs. Whitaker chuckled. "When the right person comes along, you recognize it. It's like finding the perfect house. It doesn't shout, it whispers, and if you're quiet enough, you hear it calling you home." Later that evening, as the last guests were departing, Erin stood on the front porch with Daniel, watching the sunset cast long shadows across their newly landscaped yard. "It was a perfect day," she said softly. "I didn't know I could feel this content again." The word content felt small for the fullness in her chest, but it was the closest she could get. Daniel nodded, his shoulder just touching hers as they leaned against the porch railing. "You've created something special here, Erin. Not just the renovation, but a home, a community. We created it, she corrected him. I couldn't have done this without you. Her voice was steady now, certain. Their eyes met, and in that moment, Erin felt the last broken piece of her heart begin to mend. Not erasing the past, but building something new upon it. Just as they had done with the house. As if reading her thoughts, Daniel gently took her hand. The Winter Lights Festival is next weekend, he said. Our first official family date. Erin smiled, intertwining her fingers with his. I'm looking forward to it. Inside, Maya was playing the piano they'd recently restored, a skill she hadn't practiced since before the divorce. Each note carried weight and warmth, a quiet declaration that healing was already underway. Caleb's laughter echoed from the kitchen, where he was helping Mrs. Whitaker pack up leftover pie. He was telling her a joke about squirrels in the attic, and she was laughing like she hadn't in years. Through the new stained glass window above the door, the fading sunlight streamed into the entryway, casting brilliant patterns of amber, green, and blue across the hardwood floor. The light didn't fix the cracks in the floor, but it made them beautiful, and just like the house, they weren't finished. But they were home. Jewel-toned light danced across the entryway floor, scattering like confetti from a celebration the house had waited decades to host, casting deep ambers, greens, and blues from the stained glass above. Erin looked up at the house, their house, not just with pride, but with reverence. Now transformed from a forgotten structure into a vibrant home. The exterior gleamed in soft white with sage green trim, the porch welcomed with its comfortable chairs and potted evergreens. It looked lived in, loved, like it finally remembered what it was built for. Warm light spilled from every window, no longer obscured by boards or plastic sheeting. Inside those windows, laughter, music, stories, a life taking root. It's not just a renovation, Erin said aloud. Her voice was steady but laced with wonder. It's a restoration of the house, of us. Daniel gently squeezed her hand. That's the thing about old houses with good bones, he said. They're never really broken beyond repair. They just forget what they're capable of, until someone reminds them. They're just waiting for someone with enough love and patience to help them shine again. As they stood together on the porch of what had once been the Whitaker house and was now the Dawson home, rebuilt from memory, grief, and courage, Erin felt the truth of his words settle into her soul. Some things couldn't be fixed. The past still left echoes. But even echoes can fade. But others could be transformed, rebuilt, made stronger than before. The renovation wasn't complete. There would always be another project, another corner to patch or polish. But now, the imperfections no longer felt like flaws. They were part of the story. But the most important work was already done. They hadn't just built a house. They had rewritten a legacy. They had created a home. Dear friend, life doesn't always fall apart in loud, dramatic ways. Sometimes it's quieter, like a crack in the wall, a shift in the floor beneath your feet. People drift, plans change, and before you know it, you're standing in the middle of something that used to feel like home, wondering how to put it all back together. But as the Stoics remind us, what stands in the way becomes the way. What breaks isn't the end, it's the beginning of your rebuild. Like an old house with good bones, your life still holds beauty, strength, and potential. It doesn't need to be perfect, it just needs to be loved back to life. Maybe like Erin, you'll realize the most meaningful transformations don't happen overnight. They happen moment by moment, decision by decision, as we choose healing over hiding. You are not broken. You are rebuilding. And that is powerful. If this story touched something in you, give it a like, share it with someone who might need a little hope, and subscribe for more stories that remind us, no matter where you are or how far you've fallen, your new beginning can start right here. If there's one thing Hollis House has taught us, it's this. Broken doesn't mean beyond repair. It means there's space, beautiful, messy space, for something new. Sometimes the most powerful transformations begin when we find the courage to tear down what no longer serves us and start fresh. Even when it hurts. Especially when it hurts. What in your life needs renovation? What walls are you finally ready to let go of? What foundation are you choosing to build your future on? Tell us in the comments. We read every single one, and your story matters. If this journey moved you, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more stories that celebrate our ability to rebuild, restore, and begin again. Until next time, remember, home isn't just where you live, it's where you return to yourself.